Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Clark in the Center for Weight Loss Success. And tonight on Losing Weight USA, we're going to talk a little bit about weight loss plateaus. Not only talk about them, we'll talk about what are some things you can actually do about them, how to break through. All right. Welcome to Losing Weight USA, real-time answers to your weight loss questions, as well as some of the latest updates and research, as well as a little bit of expert advice. Gives you direct access not only to me, but you should be receiving the health tips and recipes via the membership portal. Each webinar is going to last about 30 minutes or so. If you have questions, type them in during the presentation. We'll get to them at the end as time permits. And as usual, we'll typically make time permit. If you think of something once we're all done, just give us a yell here at the Center for Weight Loss Success. The email is success@cfws.com. Phone number 757-873-1880. All right, so let's dive in. I'm going to have to switch the slides over here. Maybe. All right, there we go. So weight loss plateaus, basically you are here type of thing, and you would like to be way down here. So how do you get off this weight loss plateau? Well, first, let's back up a little bit. So it certainly happens to everyone. Anybody in a weight loss plan, it's going to happen to you. You are going to hit plateaus. It's not like things are just going to keep on going. It's like, nah, you're going to get plateaus. So maybe, thinking at one end of the extreme here is like, okay, maybe it's time for weight maintenance then. All right, but if you're not time for weight maintenance, this is what we're talking about here. But it's going to happen to everybody. So they're very real. It's part of any weight loss plan. And so we'll talk about first, what does it really mean when we say a weight loss plateau? Because people come in here, I haven't lost any weight in 2 days. That is not a weight loss plateau. Okay? We'll talk about what it actually is, because there are some, if you want to call them definitions or guidelines of what really is a weight loss plateau. And then more importantly, what can you do to break through? All right, so if you're looking down at the scale and you're just looking at the same number every day, or it's bouncing around a little bit, that does get very frustrating. And you'd like to either pick it up, break it, throw it out, whatever, quit worrying about it type of thing. So, what actually is a weight loss plateau? All right, a weight loss plateau, and there are definitions out there. Basically, it's where you are truly doing the right things, but you're stuck at a certain weight for an extended period of time. And when I say an extended period of time, it doesn't mean hours or a couple of days. What we're talking about is literally weeks. So 2 to 3 weeks of okay, I'm doing all these things, I'm kind of stuck. That's a weight loss plateau. And so when you're sitting there for a couple of days, that's really not a weight loss plateau. Your body adjusts to what you're doing. So it's going to try to stop weight loss. Losing weight is not a survival benefit, from your body's perspective, so to speak. It's like, weight gain is a survival benefit. Now, as we know, it's that in the long term, that doesn't work. Weight gain is not a survival benefit, but in the short term, it is a survival benefit because, anybody, think about thousands of years ago when food wasn't plentiful. If you had extra energy storage, you'd survive a longer period of time, okay? Which was a good thing. Now, unfortunately, or you can look for however your perspective is that typically there's plenty of food available. So the famine, as far as we know, isn't right around the corner. But, okay, yes, we'd like to be able to break through these weight loss plateaus. But from your body's perspective, it's like it's a survival benefit to not have you continue to lose weight. All right, well, that's frustrating, isn't it? All right. Now, one of the first things you really need to ask yourself and figure out is, are you actually overeating? It's like, well, of course you're going to be in a weight loss plateau. You're not going to be losing weight if you're actually overeating. When it comes down to it, you have to take in a certain number of calories. And if you expend more calories than what you're taking in, and it isn't simple math, we'd all like to think it's simple math, but it isn't. And part of the reason it's just not simple math is because your body adjusts to whatever you do. these studies were proven, 60, 70, 80 years ago, where they would take people and they would act, when they could do these type of things, they'd take people and they would actually put them under kind of semi-starvation conditions to see what happens. We can't do that anymore until we don't get many volunteers anyway. But they did these studies. They actually, little history. I digress for a minute. Now, some of the original studies were actually done, these starvation type of things were actually done on around World War II, when people were drafted but refused to go to the draft. Okay, they refused to go into the army. It's like, okay, what are you going to do? Is either you're going to run away to Canada, or there was an option you could volunteer for some of these studies. And so for those who were kind of those, you want to call them dissidents at the time, but basically they would be volunteered to, okay, you will go through these studies. And they did some semi-starvation studies. And so they learned this fairly quickly, is that what happens to people in semi-starvation. So what if you cut in, when they say semi-starvation, they were giving them somewhere, 12 to 1,500 calories a day. So literally, we often have people on, medically supervised diets, 12 to 1,500 calories. But at the time, because the average calorie intake was actually closer to 3,000 calories, which it's gone up, and it's close to that, high. So in this state, they were literally eating about half of what they normally did. Okay, so what happened? Well, basically, yes, they all lost weight, but they didn't lose nearly as much weight as you'd think they did. And when they actually checked overall metabolism, they dropped their metabolism by about 40%. So literally they didn't only lost about half of what they thought they were going to lose, and they dropped their metabolism 40%. It's like, okay, all your body does, it just adjusts. So when you cut way back on calories, it may take a little time. So yeah, typically you cut way back on calories, you lose a bunch of weight, and then it kind of gets stuck. Okay, well, it's because your metabolism does slow. Now, the opposite occurs too. When they refeed you, okay, it's like, okay, metabolism also goes up when that happens. So your body is, kind of has this point where it's certainly easier to gain weight than to lose weight, but it will actually fluctuate. Kind of, if you overeat one day, actually metabolism does go up somewhat. And so it's not quite the simple math that we'd like to think it is. And as we talk about all the time, it's because there are too many other things involved, specifically hormones. But still, there is some, you can't ignore calories. Okay. Anyway, so I'm done digressing here. But first thing again, ask yourself or start calculating, am I actually overeating? Okay. Am I getting more than I need? And the only way to really figure that out is write it down, keep track. But that's probably the first question to answer. All right. So other questions they answer, well, it's just the opposite. Have you actually cut your calories too low? Because you do cut your calories way down, is that subsequently then, you're not going to, because as I just mentioned and described, there's metabolism slows significantly. Right? So if you truly go too low, that doesn't work well either. Now, the exception to that statement that we've kind of discussed fairly routinely over the last number of months, okay, is fasting. Fasting is different than starvation. Fasting is choosing to not have a meal, okay, or two or three or whatever, but it's a choice that we make, as opposed starvation is actually something that is forced on us, okay? And so your body's reaction to those two different situations is very different, okay? We've talked about fasting, we've got bunch of podcasts, videos, webinars talking about fasting and get into more details there. So I won't get into a whole bunch of details here, but it does work. Okay, but if you cut your calories too low, it doesn't work well. And just if you cut your calories too low, it kind of helps initially, but then your body adjusts to it again. So kind of the difference between that and fasting is that fasting is kind of, you're just doing it intermittently. Every once in a while, you cut way back, and your body actually's reaction is more like a stressful event, the acute stress event where metabolism actually bumps up. So you can actually increase your metabolism, is a good way to actually do that. It's just that it's a relatively short period of time. So go back to that question. Have you cut your calories too low? Not low enough, your calories too low. Neither works well. Are you getting enough water? You fall behind on water, and so your body's going to hang on to everything. So kind of when we talk about breaking through plateaus, really pushing water is going to be very important there. So are you getting enough water? Because water fuels a lot of our overall metabolic processes. Just about everyone includes water. And if we're not taking in enough water, it doesn't work very well. Okay? And things tend to slow down. It's like kind of you don't have these metabolic processes ongoing quite as efficiently. So get enough water in there. How many carbs are you taking in? This is probably the number one thing. We drift. Okay, how many carbs are you actually taking in? Especially carbohydrate in the evening. Okay, so there is something to timing. We often talk about, gee, is there a right time and a wrong time to eat? Well, there is something to that. The same meal, okay, earlier in the day versus later in the day, even if they're the same calories, same components, whatever, the insulin response is different. Later in the day, there's a bigger insulin response, and insulin is definitely turns on fat storage, turns off fat loss. Okay? So especially carbohydrate in the evening. Part of that is that one, insulin levels do go higher, but insulin also competes with growth hormone. Growth hormone is released during the night when we're in the middle of our deepest sleep. Growth hormone actually helps increase metabolism. It helps preserve lean body mass. So if you have something that competes with your normal growth hormone, subsequently then it's not going to help you much from a weight loss perspective. So timing does matter. And how many carbohydrates are you actually getting in? Count them. Everyone has a tipping point. I say this over and over again. And it just depends on where your tipping point is. Some people, it's really, really low. And actually, most of our surgical patients, it's really, really low. And other people has more leeway. And you probably know those people because they don't gain any weight. They can eat anything they want to, never gain weight. So, all right. So kind of how many carbohydrates are you really getting in? All right, then are you getting enough protein? Okay, if you're not getting enough protein, then yes, you're going to lose lean body mass. Okay, if you're not exercising too, you'll lose lean body mass too. So are you getting enough protein? Now, that doesn't mean there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. Yes, protein does actually increase your metabolism, you stay fuller longer, but protein also influences insulin levels. Literally anything you eat will make insulin levels go up. It's just that carbohydrates do it the most. Okay? But protein also does it, just not as much as carbohydrate. Fat does it the least. That's part of how ketogenic or high-fat diets actually work. As part of that, they influence insulin the least of anything. But literally anything you eat will make insulin levels go up. Okay? And so, but are you getting enough protein? Because if you're not getting enough protein, then yes, you're going to be more inclined to lose lean body mass, break down that lean bodies, which is going to slow your metabolism down. Exercise. Okay, now I'm going to assume you're exercising. Okay, now that probably is a big leap of faith right there, but okay, is your exercise then actually too routine? Because your body gets used to whatever you're doing, whatever routine you're doing, your body will adjust to. And over time, you don't get as much out of it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you've got to completely change up your routine. It can be as simple as changing the way you do your routine. Whether if you're a jogger or you're a biker, so what if you do kind of sprint slow, and that biking or jogging or even on the elliptical, whatever. Changing up the routine, even if it's kind of the same exercise, works. Now, completely changing exercise also really works too, because whenever we do something different, we typically use different muscles, use them in a different fashion, we'll get sore. Basically, that's how we build muscle. And so a little soreness is good, although a little soreness also means there's a little swelling. So typically retain a little water there. And so when weight initially jumps up a little bit, but as you get rid of the swelling and the soreness, the water weight goes back down. Right? So changing up your exercise plan. The other end of the spectrum is if you're exercising too hard. If you're exercising too hard, you also can work against you only because typically cortisol level, whenever we're overstressed, and exercise is a stress on our body. So it's kind of, you really have to think of stress as kind of good and bad. It's really how we react to stress. How does your body react to stress? We think of stress being emotional, social, that kind of thing. But exercise, anything we do actually can be a stress on your body as well. So if you're exercising too hard, you're actually also tend to break down more lean body mass. Plus, cortisol levels go up. Cortisol level works against you. Cortisol is your chronic stress hormone, not the acute stress hormones. It's the chronic stress hormone. So the chronic stress hormones typically work against you because cortisol by itself makes insulin levels go up. Okay? Cortisol also can make your blood sugars go up, which secondarily makes insulin levels go up. But cortisol by itself makes insulin levels go up. So again, a lot of it often comes back to controlling insulin levels, which we've talked about multiple times about controlling insulin levels, but controlling stress is a big one. So are you handling stress well? Leads right next into that next comment there, as well as quality sleep. Because when we get poor quality sleep, cortisol levels go up, same discussion. So handling stress appropriately. Now, it's not like you're going to get rid of stress in our life. We're not. We're all going to be stressed. Okay. It's really what's our reaction to the stress. That's what we have to learn to handle. Okay. Now, if it truly is, I'm so stressed because of all these things that I'm doing, it's like, okay, well, maybe you need to get rid of some of the stress. But reality is we can't get rid of all stress. It's not going to happen. So it's how do we react to that stress? And it's kind of okay, the deep breathing, the exercise can help, the going for a walk, taking a warm bath, getting a massage, all that stuff. All those things of handling stress can be very helpful. Getting quality sleep. If you're getting poor quality sleep, you're also going to have higher cortisol levels. And finally, a couple things to think about. Say you're doing everything else right. What about caffeine and artificial sweeteners? Okay, let's hit caffeine first. Caffeine is a stimulant, okay? But as a stimulant, you'd think it would help you with weight loss, but for many people, it actually doesn't. Okay? And here's the reason, because caffeine as a stimulant can increase cortisol levels. Cortisol works against weight loss from lots of different levels. From, again, insulin levels go up, chronic stress just doesn't work well. So caffeine does increase the cortisol levels. So subsequently then it can work against you. Okay? What about artificial sweeteners? Well, artificial sweeteners, there's no calories in there. Okay? But a couple of reasons it tends to work against you is one, it tends to train you to really like sweet things, which tends to lead to eating more carbohydrates. Okay? So it trains you to like sweet things, but actually artificial sweeteners by itself will increase insulin levels. And part of that is because we think of digestion in multiple phases. Well, there's actually something called the cephalic phase. Cephalic means your head, okay? And it's your brain, basically. It's like you haven't actually eaten yet, but your brain is turning on, hey, I'm going to eat. And subsequently, then it may be due to the taste, maybe due to the smell, maybe due to a lot, just time to eat. You're going to your favorite restaurant, whatever it is. But it turns on, and actually some of these digestive juices, digestive enzymes start increasing in anticipation of what you're going to receive. So artificial sweeteners tend to turn that on because your body getting something sweet, because it tastes sweet, it just doesn't have the calories there. But your body doesn't understand that, hey, there's no calories in that sweet thing. It's like, so it's getting ready, and it's therefore releasing insulin to take care of the sugar that it thinks is coming down to the intestinal tract. So there are many people very sensitive to artificial sweeteners. And so getting rid of a lot of just artificial things, I'm going to digress here again for a minute, and that's okay. The best food is absolutely no labels on it. Eating clean, eating green, eating whole, whatever one wants to call it. So you prepare the food yourself. In core of the eating plan, hydration, good protein sources, vegetable salad stuff, get rid of everything else. All right, enough of that. I say that every time. Okay, so investigate these questions because typically there's somewhere you drifted and all these things can influence it. All right, so what do we do then to kind of break through these weight loss plateaus? All right. Well, number one is journal. write it down, because I know absolutely for a fact that if you don't write it down, we'll never really know where the problem area is. And literally the fact of writing it down, you'll probably change what you do. So if you literally make yourself write everything down, what's going on there, and not write down, the water you're taking in, the non-water you're taking in, what you're exercising, but also obviously what you're eating. The fact that you actually start writing it down will change what you do, because you're going to go, well, I don't really want to write that down. And therefore, you probably won't. So the fact of actually writing it down will actually change your behavior. So journaling is absolutely the best tool to figure this out. All right, what about everything? I put fasting a second. Fasting works. There's actually no way for it not to work. It will work, okay, for lots of different reasons. And I won't get into all of those at the moment, because we have plenty of discussions on fasting recently. All right, but it will work. It'll work for anyone, everyone, and doesn't cost anything. All right, but it will work. There's not a way for it not to work, actually. All right, make sure you are taking your vitamin. Okay, so if you get that's kind of a similar concept of falling behind on water, falling behind on protein. You fall behind on water, falling behind on protein, typically weight loss stalls. Okay, but also if you start falling behind, especially if you're in a weight loss plan, you're taking in less, and you're not getting your multivitamins in, and potentially you're in that same situation. Gee, if you're not getting enough of something, your body's going to slow down and say, okay, we got to conserve this. Okay. Now, there are some other supplements that potentially can be helpful with weight loss. So these are things potentially adding. Probiotics, there's good evidence that, hey, probiotics can help with weight loss. Green tea, there's excellent evidence. It can boost your metabolism. Not a whole lot, but a few percentage points, and that may be what's helpful. Garcinia cambogia, the working ingredient there. Sorry. The working ingredient, it's the same working ingredient. It's in hydroxycut, hydroxy, all those ones it's the Garcinia cambogia there. So it actually can, now we're doing a little bit of an appetite suppressant, it's a natural appetite suppressant. Cayenne peppers, peppers are like a paste in there, actually does boost metabolism somewhat, not a whole lot, but yes, it can be helpful. We're talking about little things that can make a difference. All right, as mentioned earlier, push the water. Make sure you're getting your protein. I probably ought to change that. It says increase your protein, but really is make sure you're getting adequate protein. It's not high protein, it's adequate protein. Decrease your carbohydrate. Okay, just take them down another notch. Kind of throwing your body a curveball once in a while is a good thing. And change your exercise routine. Again, throwing your body a curveball once in a while is a good thing. Make sure you're doing resistance training, add like high intensity interval training, anaerobic exercise where you're really driving the heart rate up. Now, that's not something that you can just dive into. You have to work towards that. And there's B12, MIC injections. I throw that in there because some people it helps tremendously. Other people not so much. Unfortunately, there's not a way to know that until you actually try it. It's like, okay, you find out if it's helpful or not. So a number of different things, but again, first thing I'm going to go at you is journal. Write it down. All right. And then finally, you may need individualized attention. Meaning it's time to sit down with one of the counselors and kind of go over, okay, what's your routine? Let's talk about it out loud and kind of figure out where's the problem area. Because sometimes it's hard for us to figure out our own problem areas. And you may need some individualized attention to figure out, okay, let's start working this. Let's change this part up. So getting some individualized attention, individualized counseling can only be helpful. That's, that we do around here. So if you are struggling, let's get together with one of the counselors here. That's what we have them here for. I'm not a good counselor. So somebody, well, I'll make an appointment with Dr. Clark. Dr. Clark's going to tell you, do this. What the counselor's going to help you is how do you do it? I can tell you what to do. It's fairly simple what to do. It's how do you make it happen? Easier said than done. Simple doesn't mean easy. All right, so in summary about all this, plateaus are going to happen. Doesn't matter who you're talking about. It's going to happen. Work through them. Okay? Review the questions that I mentioned earlier. Kind of make sure you go through them. Try to figure out where's the problem area, and then work on that problem area. So things to try, yes, journaling, that's number one. Fasting works. It's just not easy to do. Increase your water. Yep, push your water. I'll say get adequate protein. Should change that slide. Not necessarily increase your protein intake. Get adequate protein, because more of something doesn't necessarily make it better. Decrease your carbohydrates. Certainly less of something can make it better. Decrease your carbohydrate. Kind of change up your exercise routine. Get rid of caffeine, artificial sweeteners. Play with that. Some people, I mentioned caffeine. Some people, caffeine may actually help them. But there are plenty of other people that it doesn't help them. And figuring out, which is right for you, you got to play with it. No one can do that for you. It's like, no, you've got to figure that out. B vitamin injections can be helpful, and then definitely work on getting quality sleep and controlling stress. Because people don't think about those things because there's no calories involved there. But if you're not controlling stress, if you're not getting quality sleep, you're going to get stuck. And it may have nothing to do with the other things that you're doing and the other things that you're eating. It's just that here's a good reason that you're going to get stuck. And if you ignore those things, it won't work well. Again, it kind of goes back to our controlling insulin levels thing. If you're doing everything else, but you're not controlling stress, you're not getting quality sleep, you're not going to control insulin levels that effectively. And then finally, kind of hang in there. It is worth the effort. And eventually, you will break through there. All right, any questions? I don't see anything in particular, but if you think of things, you know where to find us here at the Center for Weight Loss Success. You should be stopping by, hopefully, getting your body comp done. Want to make sure you're losing the fat, not losing the lean body mass. I say this every week as well. All right, you should be receiving the weight loss tips as well as weekly recipes. Tune in each Tuesday, 6 o'clock for the next webinar. Watch your email for the invite and link. And remember, it's your life. Make it a healthy one. Have a good evening, everyone. Take care.